Hello! Last week we talked about acidity in food in relation to Thanksgiving specifically, which is coming up here in a few weeks. If you haven't seen that video, it's the cranberry sauce video from last week. Go check it out. I'll put a link to it in the description below. This week, I'm gonna show you how you can use acidity by adding certain things in the process of making mashed potatoes and gravy, which is typically something that is really salty, buttery, like meaty, savory flavors. For me in the past, it's good, but it's missing something. And what that something is acidity. So I'm gonna show you ways that you can add acidic ingredients here and there while you're in the process of making the mashed potatoes and gravy to make it really pop when it's done. We're gonna use recipes from Bon Appetit that I will link below. I don't use the recipe exactly how it is. I tweak it a little bit and I'll tell you exactly what those tweaks are as we go along. Let's go. We're going to start with the potato prep and the first tweak that I make to this recipe, boiling the potatoes instead of baking them. The recipe calls for baking the potatoes, which takes an hour plus, and they have to be peeled while they're still hot from the oven, which can be difficult. I prefer to go a little easier on myself and peel them first, then boil them until they're soft, which typically takes around 20 to 25 minutes. This part is totally up to your preference, but I haven't noticed a big difference in flavor or texture when boiling versus baking, and boiling is easier and faster, so I figure why make things harder on myself. Anyway, once the potatoes are peeled, we're going to chop them into medium pieces. The larger you leave the pieces, the longer it'll take for them to soften as they boil. But don't cut them too small into tiny bits or they'll mush easily and make for gummy mashed potatoes. We're going to let them boil for about 20 minutes, checking them by poking them with a fork. If the fork passes through the potato easily and they feel soft, they're done. If they feel too firm, they still need more time boiling. Once they're done, we can drain the water and mash them up or put them through a potato ricer if you have one. Then set aside. At this point, we've cooked the potatoes, but haven't really seasoned them or given them any flavor. To do that, we're going to make a little slurry by heating a head of garlic cut lengthwise, a few sprigs of thyme, 2 tablespoons of peppercorns, 4 tablespoons of butter, 4 cups of milk, and 1 tablespoon of salt in a pot until boiling. We're going to be straining this out, so using the whole head of garlic and the peppercorns and this whole sprigs of thyme, that's not really an issue because we're going to strain it out into the potatoes to mix up when we're done. Once boiling, we'll remove from heat, cover, and let rest for 30 minutes while we start on the gravy. We're going to toss about 3 pounds of uncooked bone-in chicken, or turkey if you prefer, with 2 tablespoons of neutral oil in a cast iron pot or skillet. Toss to coat the chicken in the oil, and then we're going to roast in a 450 degree oven for 30 minutes, tossing halfway through. Hey, that chicken's not for you! What are you doing? Little chicken weasel in here. Anyway, while that's roasting, we'll prepare some veggies to add. 2 heads of garlic cut in half lengthwise, 2 shallots cut in half, 1 about 4-inch peeled ginger, thickly sliced, 4 ounces of shiitake mushrooms, roughly chopped, 2 teaspoons of peppercorns. All of this is going to be added to the pot to roast with the chicken and provide flavor, but we're going to eventually strain it all out, and it won't be eaten in the final gravy, so you don't need to worry about peeling the garlic or cutting pieces into bite-sized amounts, since it'll be discarded anyway. Roughly chopped will do just fine. At the 30-minute mark of chicken roasting, we're going to take it out and toss in our veggies we just prepped and put it back into the oven for another 35 minutes, tossing halfway through. While that's roasting, we're going to prepare the beurre meunier, which is a French term for a mixture of butter and flour that will help thicken our gravy. For this recipe in particular, we're using 6 tablespoons of flour and 4 tablespoons of butter at room temperature. You can use a fork to mix if you'd like, but I prefer to just mix it up with my fingers, although I should have used a slightly bigger bowl. You may have also heard of a roux, which is also a French term for a flour butter mixture used to thicken sauces. The difference between the two is that a roux is cooked in a pot over low heat before adding any sauce, just the flour and butter. And a beurre meunier is added to the already heated sauce. They can be used nearly interchangeably to thicken just about anything, but the important part is not to just simply add the flour. The butter is needed in combination with the flour to prevent clumps of flour forming in the finished sauce. Once our chicken and veggie mixture has roasted for its final 30 minutes, we're going to pull it out and heat it over medium heat on the stove. We're going to add about half a cup of sherry cooking wine, our acidity, and scrape the pot to get all those tasty bits off the bottom and sides. Then we're going to add 6 cups of chicken stock and a handful of chopped parsley or full parsley stems. Again, we're going to be straining this at the end, so no need to worry about meticulously chopping everything, just throw it in there. Once the stock is in the pot, bring it to a simmer and we're going to let it continue simmering for around 30 minutes. Remember to turn the chicken so all sides are submerged in the liquid at some point during the simmering. Once that 30 minutes is up, the stock should look fairly deep golden brown in color and your house should smell amazing. We're going to take out the chicken and discard it. Sorry chicken, we just used you for the flavor. And then pour the mixture through a fine mesh strainer over the sink just to be safe. Then we're finally in the home stretch of making this delicious gravy. And we're going to return it to medium heat and add our beurre meunier, whisking constantly until fully incorporated and smooth. Once the gravy is thickened all the way and coats the back of a spoon, remove from heat and transfer to a container. The recipe calls for adding MSG at this point, which is an ingredient that will add umami flavor. But I chose to add Worcestershire sauce instead. You can also use a bit of soy sauce if you have it on hand or would prefer. Then, this is probably the most important part. We're going to taste it to make sure it's seasoned to your liking. And by that, I mean salt. Give it a taste, and if you find it needs salt, add some, give it a stir, and taste again until it's seasoned correctly to your taste. And now the gravy is ready. It can be made ahead of time and stored in the fridge for up to a week. Simply reheat when you're ready to enjoy. Lastly, we're going to make some Crispies to go on top of our mashed potatoes. This is an extra small step that's optional, but adds a small bit of texture and flavor to the finished dish. We're going to pulse 2 cups of kettle-style potato chips, 2 pieces of thick sliced bread, and 2 cloves of peeled garlic in the food processor until finely chopped. Then add to an oven-proof skillet, tossing with 4 tablespoons of butter until coated, about 1 minute. Then we'll toast in the oven at 450 degrees around 15 to 20 minutes, tossing every 5 minutes so it gets nice and mixed up until golden brown. Then add 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, a 1/3 cup chopped parsley, and I also add about a teaspoon of lemon zest. Again, the acidity makes a big difference. And finally, our comforting, delicious mashed potato dream is complete. It's finally time to try it. Oh yeah. I have to say that I did not use enough potatoes and I meant to reduce the recipe for the slurry as well, and I forgot. So the potatoes are a little bit more liquidy than they should be. What I should have done is strain it slowly and mix and add it slowly to the potatoes until the potatoes were to the consistency that I wanted them to be. That's what I would recommend you do regardless of how many potatoes you're using. And this delicious, oh my goodness, this gravy very much one of those things that is a ton of effort, but it's so worth it. Oh my God. This is the best gravy I've ever had. Yes, the gravy is a lot of effort. However, because you don't use the drippings from the turkey, which you usually make the day of on Thanksgiving, you can make this ahead of time and then just have it in the fridge ready to go. Make it up to a week in advance and then just boom, gravy. And like we talked about last week, the added acidity in every small bit, the lemon zest in the crispy, crunchy topping, using the buttermilk and sour cream in the potatoes, the vinegar in the gravy, it just balances out everything and brightens everything up. And that gravy it's got some complex stuff going on. It's very meaty, but it's the seasonings and everything, oh my gosh, it's just so good. It makes sense why they call it Why Is It So Good Gravy. I have to come up with more things to put gravy on now. Anyway, if you like this video or you learned something, give it a like. If you'd like to learn more, subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.